Now, in a week or so, average house prices in Auckland look set, or they really will hit $1 million. That comes as the government's housing accord and special housing areas are due to make way for the new rules of the council's unitary plan. But have these measures really worked to open up supply, or has it just meant more land banking? Well, Housing Minister Nick Smith joins me now. We appreciate him being here. Nick Smith.
The solution to New Zealand's housing challenge is to build more houses. And there's a broad consensus around that. And we're achieving just that. We're right in the middle of
we will get to that, but I want to talk to you about
building boom in New Zealand history.
I know, we'll come to this and we'll talk about it a lot, but I want to talk to you about the symbolism of $1 million average house price. You are the $1 million minister. Is it good enough? Have you failed?
Well, it's
personally failed.
Well, no, I don't accept that. I have worked very hard on a program that is delivering an increase in supply of housing. If you look at the program, whether it's been the RMA reform, whether it's been the special housing areas, we've gone from building about 13,000 homes a year when I became minister. We're now building 29,000 houses a year. I've got confidence in the program. We're making good progress. We're not there yet. Well, there is 154 special housing areas. Here's the part. The government cannot force a private landowner to invest the millions of dollars in infrastructure and houses. What we can do
Yes, you can.
No, you can't force. Don't look. If somebody owns a private piece of land, the idea that either the government or the council can come along and say, you must spend $10 million building roads and infrastructure, you must spend $50 million on houses, that's a nonsense, Paddy. So what you have to do is remove the
So you're saying land banking is A-OK, because let's look at another thing here. Now, let's look at another advertisement, this time in Otahu. It's called a gold mine. This is what you're talking about. It's a land bank. That's how they advertise it. It's a special housing area. You're saying you can't do anything about this?
No, I'm saying that
You're saying this is fine?
I'm saying if the government owns the land at a site like Weymouth, at a site like Tamaki or Hobsonville or others...
We're looking at land banking here, Minister.
Well, look, land banking has been around. I can show you newspaper articles in my home community of Nelson in the 1860s when people were land banking. That is, the government, if you have a private landowner system,
because it happened in the 1860s doesn't mean it's OK.
Well, it happens in every single country in the world. Here's the question for you, Paddy, if you want to go down that road. Is the government or the council to force people to spend tens of millions of dollars? No, it can't. What it does need to do is get the incentives. The best way to stop land banking is to provide a competitive market in which people have the incentives to get on and build those houses. Now, we've achieved that in Christchurch, where you have got, in the last year, house prices in Christchurch have gone up by 2%. Rents have dropped by 8%. That's because the government's got the planning rules right, and so there isn't the advantage for land banking, why there are 7,000 sections that have come through that system that would not exist if we had not been down that process.
You're setting up a carrot, but you refuse to use a stick, don't you? You refuse to take any enforcement measures whatsoever against land bankers.
Well, on the 16th of September, when the new unitary plan comes into effect, if people have not lodged a resource consent for converting those special housing areas into housing, they lapse.
Minister, will you use a stick against these people, though? They don't use that land to put houses on.
There is already a stick in the legislation in the sense that if they do not have resource consents and process those special housing areas, they become null and void on the 16th of September.
You haven't done that.
3 weeks away.
You've sent this letter that we're looking at here.
Well, sadly, Paddy, I need to apply by the law like anybody else.
It just seems, and I'll translate you here, land bankers get a free pass under Nick Smith.
No, that is not correct. But the people who promise that they are going to get rid of land banking are dreamers, because it isn't possible, as I said to you earlier, to physically force people to spend the tens of millions of dollars on what is required to convert land into subdivision housing.
There are options, there are rating options, there are land tax options, there are a whole lot of options. There's legislation. You don't want to use any of them, do you?
Well, I just simply say by legislation you cannot force people to spend private money. And I look at Christchurch and I say the formula that
What about increasing rates for land bankers?
Well, of course, that is a tool that is available to councils. Many councils use that tool. And what
do you want councils to use that?
Oh, look, I am perfectly open. And one of the things that councils are able to do is that they have a huge cost with infrastructure. Government's helping with that cost with the Housing Infrastructure Fund.
As the government, you won't get in there and encourage that.
Councils already have the rating authority to be able to rate developers who are choosing not to bring their land into market with housing.
OK, foreign buyers. before the next election, will you do anything more to restrict foreign buyers?
Well, right across the housing picture, I'm taking an evidence-based approach. Now, what the evidence shows...
So you could do something more about foreign buyers?
Well, all I'm simply saying is that the evidence that we've got with a very thorough database of the tax residency of every single person who's buying... Well, it is in my view.
No, it's not.
Every single...
Do you want house prices to fall, Minister?
The government... Well, you want... house prices to fall? No. You know what that will do?
Yes.
Let's say that house prices in a city like Auckland drop by half as the Green Party suggested.
So you don't want house prices to fall?
No, I've consistently said I want house price inflation.
So you are happy...
I want house price inflation in single digits.
You are happy with house prices of $1 million on average in Auckland? That's good?
No, I'm saying that a significant drop... Paddy, let's look at... You're going to have tens of thousands of Kiwi families effectively gone broke. That is, their mortgage is worth more than their homes. And I would not wish that on any Kiwi family, and that is effectively, you're asking me to endorse that.
No, I'm not. I'm saying, do you want house prices to fall from $1 million?
The objective of my policy, both in Auckland and throughout New Zealand, is for house price inflation to be in single digits.
Okay, now I want to ask you about this, about housing affordability again, and the house-to-income multiple, which is the world standard of affordability.
Well, I question that.
Okay, well, anyway, I want to...
Because it ignores interest rates.
I want to quote...
Well, interest rates are at the lowest level they've been in 60 years, Paddy, and you cannot
but the question is this, and I'm going to use...
ignore interest rates in the story about housing.
I want to use your own words because, look, in 2014, just before the election, you said... And this is when the housing multiple was 7. You said, do you remember this? You said your goal was to get it down to 4. The other way.
But let's be honest. Housing ownership in New Zealand has been in decline for 25 years, and you and a number of commentators are looking for these instant solutions. They are not. If this was easy, house prices would not have doubled under the previous government.
Here's another...
And so we have a plan. And we are going systematically addressing the real issues that will make a material difference long-term to housing affordability.
Is you are the one who proposed instant solutions. You are the one who set yourself a target that's gone the wrong way. Not me,
that's not
you.
No, that's not correct.
Here's another one then. And
those projections forward is looking at a whangarei being built on top of Auckland this term of Parliament and another whangarei in the next term of Parliament. That is a building boom in anybody's terms, Paddy.
I need to know this. Whose side are you on? Are you on the side of the land bankers, the developers, the speculators, or are you on the side of the first home buyer?
I'm absolutely on the home of Kiwi families wanting to get an affordable home.
You're on the side of the first home buyer?
I'm on the home of Kiwi families. Well, it's not just first-home buyers. There are other people that are wanting houses. There are people that rent, all of those. But Libya, no question.
Why won't you do anything about developers, about land bankers?
Well, I just want to do things that are going to make a real difference. And so when I hear people are saying that they are going to prevent land banking, they've got a better chance of getting to the moon. What you can do is actually provide the incentives, as we have successfully in Christchurch, to ensure that the market does not make it an incentive for people to simply sit on land.
Okay. Will the housing bubble burst, and does that worry the government?
Well, ultimately, and I said at the beginning of the program, the government does not control house prices. What we do control...
Do you think the bubble could burst?
I think house pricing in Auckland has increased at unsustainable rates in recent years. That is a symptom of New Zealand doing well, large numbers of New Zealanders not leaving, coming home, so there's a large amount of pressure. The thing that gives me real confidence is because with that unitary plan completed...
If it bursts before the election, what are the consequences for your government?
Well, look, you can speculate on all of those things. I'm simply in the business of building houses.
What would happen, though, if that bubble bursts?
But look, you can get into all sorts of speculative arguments that go well beyond my ministerial portfolio. It is my view that with the program we have underway around housing, I am confident that we are going to get house price increases that are into that single-digit range that are far more sustainable. Actually, my view for the next 3 or 4 years is because New Zealand is doing well, because those Kiwis are staying home, our economy is growing faster than others, I am actually confident that house prices will not slump, as you suggest.
Now, thank you very much, Minister. We'll end it there. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Now, welcome back. We are with our panel, Trish Searson and Sue Bradford and Peter Fafu. Now, Trish, What did you make of Nick Smith? He seemed to think everything's A-OK with the housing market in Auckland.
Well, I thought your $1 million minister line was a great one, Paddy, but, no one needs to stick up for Nick Smith, but I thought it was a bit of a tough call for him because, the Auckland housing market is just that. It's a market. The only thing the government can do is really set the rules, and what we're playing catch-up on now is decades of bad planning around Auckland, both at central government level and local government level. It's not just housing, it's infrastructure. And, even up until 2-3 years ago, the umpteen stories that we had about resource consent problems. You can't build, it's too expensive, you can't get the land you need. Well, we're now paying the price for that. So, I think Nick had some really good points. You had a few external groans that you couldn't keep in, but, it is a tough situation, and a crisis like this isn't created overnight. As I said, we're playing catch up for decades of very poor planning.
Peter, your take. I mean, we also talked there about land banking, special housing areas. He'd written 3 or 4 letters to try and sort of some special housing areas. What's your take on how Nick Smith is getting on?
Yeah, I mean, people got to remember that he's part of a team. So in a way, he's the Minister of Housing and Supply. So let's look at that. I mean, he did mention a couple of good examples in terms of the supply, in terms of the consents and the building consents going through. But I think there's a lot of incentives, and he talks about incentives that the government can put on the market. Now, one of them is around actually having a larger scale building program. What I mean by that is 1 in every 16 houses in Auckland is owned by the government via Housing New Zealand. They've got some good models out of Weymouth, Hobsonville and Tamaki. I think they probably need 2 or 3 Tamakis, so they need to go at scale in order to catch up on the supply side.
They need to build more houses.
They need to build more and identify that. However, I think that they also need to look at the demand side of the housing equation. What we mean by that, and it's been identified by a number of people, can we do something to actually soften the demand side? Is there an opportunity for stamp duty on foreign buyers? Is there an opportunity for...
Why doesn't he want to go there?
It's politically challenging for them. What I would say in terms of the politics of this, I think they should be carefully looking at the Tim Murphy spin-off SSI poll that came out only a couple of days ago, where 2/3 of their own National Party voters are saying you have not done enough and you should do more. They should do their own polling on that, and they'll probably they'll probably reaffirm exactly what spin-off has said and exactly what Bernard and others have said as well.
Yeah, and Sue Bradford, what was your take on Nick Smith?
Ignored the huge problem that stares groups like ours in the face every day, that there's tens of thousands of Aucklanders and people in other parts of the country without a decent home or house over their head at all, and it's getting worse every day. No mention of homelessness or the urgent need for a massive commitment by government. The government can intervene. It's not just about policy. They can build houses. They can build state houses, which is what the former Labor government did in the 1930s.
What are the political ramifications here for National? What are the political ramifications here for National if that market keeps going the way it is, bullish, or if it bursts? What are the ramifications?
Well, let's remember, and I think that was a good point Nick Smith made, you've got a whole lot of people who do own houses in Auckland and who have got on the housing ladder. All of this talk about lowering the price of housing, that is a great point. What happens if you've just got a mortgage? There is some artificial lowering, which I don't know would happen in any Western democracy around the world without, a revolution. And then people have got a mortgage more than their house is worth. So I just don't think that is.
You can't crash the market, Peter. You seem to be on this as well.
The challenge that the government has got is that housing now has an impact on every element of the productivity in terms of the economy in this country, right? So even in terms of the building part of the program, who's going to build the houses? We have limited skill set within our current sites. The ITOs are trying their best to get more of our folks on site, therefore have an impact on immigration. So it impacts every element of the economy. That's the challenge that the government's got now, that you can't silo housing anymore, which is what previous governments could do and which was a challenge.
Sure.
Now it impacts on everything.
Sue Bradford, do you think they can crash the market? Do you think they can bring house prices down without turning the economy upside down?
I think that they should use legislative and policy tools. For example, if you had a good government, we could actually do something about all the investors sitting on empty houses. We could have a law that said you can't have more than one spare house at a time. Actually, why have we got tens of thousands of empty houses in Auckland with people going homeless, sleeping on the streets or in the parks with the cars every night? And we can build houses. The state could choose to use its own land or to buy land to build houses. It could choose to employ some of the 330,000 underemployed people in this country to step up to build more houses. It's got choices and it's not taking them.
Now, a quick take.